move on. From the diary of Anne Frank. Diary. I'm sure diary entry, diary note, there won't be anyone in the world who has never ever written a diary. Yes, including me. Especially girls, they have the habit, they are tensed whether they can say something to a particular person. Will that particular person tell to someone else? Yes. So on the basis of this, you have a special person, and she's really, really special, and that's Anne Frank. You might be knowing that during the time of Anne Frank, there were a lot of Second World War was going on, and obviously German was under the ruler of Hitler, and obviously they were behind the Jewish people, and Anne Frank belonged to a Jewish kind of person. So now what happened, they had to be living in hidden for some time because they shouldn't be in the notice of Hitler. If they have been found, they were taken to concentration camp, and they were like brutally they were not given any food. Lot of things they had to undergo. I'm sure everybody have gone through that through your social studies. So this is the background thing what you have to know about Anne Frank. This was the thing what was happening in Anne Frank's life. So you can very clearly says that Hitler's power is quite widely seen in Anne's life. So if you can look back to the diary note, it is quietly the one which is taken or which has been learned by you is dated as 20 June 1942, and we know by 1946 Anne Frank passed away. So now if we just move on, yes, if we can look into what we are learning in the book. That book, she gives a wonderful description about her family. She loved her family more than anything else in the world. So you might be wondering, why did she write a diary? She wanted something to be very secure, and she wanted a good friend. And as a girl of 12, 13 or 14 years old, they always wanted someone whom you think that whatever they say will be what literally which will not be revealed to anyone. And like that, for her 13th birthday, her father gifted her a diary. And this diary was very special to her. And right from 1942 onwards, she started writing her diary. And this diary became a part of their life. And it is said, she named her diary as Kitty. As I've written here, Kitty. She named her diary as Kitty. She started writing in 1942 after her 13th birthday. And yes, the whole family had to move to Amsterdam in Netherlands. They had to move on. The reason was because they just wanted to be hidden for some time, to be away from the Hitler's people. So now what happened after some years? Yes, they were caught, and they were in the Netherlands. They were back to Germany, and they were in the concentration camp. Concentration camp is a camp where they will be brutally, a lot of things are being done by them. A lot of brutality is happening there in the concentration camps. So now what happened there? The only person who survived, is always in whoever goes to concentration camp, whichever family, there won't be anyone who will survive. But in their family, the only person who survived was their father, Anne Frank's father. Anne Frank's father returns, and then he finds this particular diary note. So when the father went through the diary note, the father realized it was not just a diary, but it looks like the literal problems, the tortures faced by the Jewish people. So now over here in this diary entry, the father thought this was not, you don't feel like as if a teenager has written that. The father published it. And while writing the diary entry itself, Anne Frank has many a time said, okay, now who's going to read a 13-year-old's diary? Yes, but many read it. And how can you know that she became so famous? Reason is, this particular diary was translated into many languages, and it's been read the whole over the world. And this Anne Frank's diary is being completely moved into movies and films and kind of things like that. So which very clearly says that Anne Frank was a popular. She was a girl who died in her almost in her 15 or 16th birthday. She died. When she died in her 16th birthday, that period of time from 13 to 16, that short period of time, very clearly she has written a lot about the Germans' torture which they received and also the problems she had to undergo. Because a teenage girl means she needs freedom, she has to move about, but she was there in Netherlands, she was there in Amsterdam, sometime hidden, just like a captivated. The family was settled there, they had to move on. So we now will move on to the diary. So now we've got the base, now why and how she wrote the diary. The first important point you have to look into is on her 13th birthday she got a diary as a gift. She wanted a companion at by that time and she named the companion her diary as Kitty. Second point, the diary entry what you are learning is just a small instance from the whole diary. Just one small instance which is dated on 20th June 1942. Now, when she begins her diary, she says, without the introduction about my family, you won't be able to understand. That's why she says her family consists of her dad, her mom, her sister, her elder sister, who was 16 years old when she began writing the diary, and also her grandmother. Now, when you say grandmother, yes, grandmother played a pivotal role in her life. Because at a point of time when the parents were migrating different places, she and her sister was staying with the grandmother for some time, and she says those were the beautiful days in her life. And at the age of 14, for her 14th birthday, her grandmother was not with her, and she lit a candle and she says, this extra candle is for my grandmother. That's how the story revolves. So now she says, let's move on to the date, 20 June 1942. She begins. The day she was so scared and she didn't know what would happen on that day. She was in a class, and in that class she was so scared. Now why she was scared, or why was her classmate scared? Because that was a very important day for them. Now why it was an important day? Because that day their results are gonna come, and how many are moving to next grade will be informed on that particular day. So this was very important day to her, and very clearly she says teachers are unpredictable. Yes, I quite agree with that. When they are happy, when they are sad, when they are angry, we never know. And this particular day she was quite tense because she never knew what would happen. Now she was just looking in the back. Yeah, there are a lot of dummies in my class. What are dummies? Yeah, literally who are very weak in major subjects. But she says, I'm not a dummy because I am just a little weak in math. And very clearly she says, I am only scared of math because the math teacher is Mr. Keesing. Now what's special about Mr. Keesing? He was a person who belongs to the old kind of teaching, and he thinks the class should be perfect silence and whatnot. Anne Frank was a talkative little girl. Anne Frank was a very naughty among the class. You can think about it. She was such a bubbly person. Just to think about, yes, we have to be grateful to their parents, because to have such a lively and a bubbly child. Yes. The main problem with Mr. Keesing was he wanted pin drop silence, and Anne Frank was a chatterbox. So this continued for a long while, and after some time the teacher couldn't take it up. So now what the teacher thought he would give a punishment. And the first punishment the teacher gave to Anne Frank was write an essay on the topic chatterbox. The topic was chatterbox. She didn't know what to write. She thought and thought and thought. She thought of what will he write of essay, what topic will he write. But she knew one thing. She was a witty person and she wanted something different. She was quite a different girl from others, because a 13-year-old's diary entry being read by the whole world, very clearly you can understand what kind of girl she was, right? So this particular girl, she thought a lot, and then she started writing essay, and she ended up writing 3 pages essay and she submitted to the teacher. The teacher started reading and teacher laughed a lot. This was something which she never expected, but the thing what she wrote was literally a witty one. Now I'll tell you what she wrote. She told, yes, I know I'm a chatterbox, and I'll try to to decrease the thing what I'm talking. I'll try to, but I know it is impossible for me because I'm a person who talks a lot. But then she says, you know why I talk a lot? The reason is my mother is also a chatterbox. And not just by my mother, my forefathers also chatterbox. So she just wanted to put a stand on that, telling that it was inherited trait. So she cannot do anything about that. See how witty person she was. And that's how she concluded the first essay. Now this went on, and the teacher was again very angry, and teacher thought, okay, now again I'm gonna give a punishment again for her. Now what happened? She gave the second punishment, and the second punishment was again to write an essay on an incorrigible chatterbox. Incorrigible means which can never ever change. Whatever you do, you can never ever change. We know who says quack quack. Yes, that's a duck. And this time Mr. Keesing has given the topic quack quack quack, said Miss Chatterbox. Now she thought, now I'm gonna play up something. This is not right. Yes, I talk. Doesn't mean such a punishment. She wanted to give something. This time her best friend Sani was not literally a poet, but she used to pen down few lines. So she asked the help of Sani, and Sani was all the way ready to help Anne Frank. So check the spelling, SANNE. So Sani was ready to help, and they together, this time instead of essay, she wrote a poetry in verse. And what was it all about? It was a story about three ducklings, small ducks, a duck and a swan. Now the story goes like this. These little ducklings used to quack always. They used to talk a lot, quack quack quack. So what did the swan do? The father duck do? The father duck bit the ducklings to death. Why did the father duck do that? Because the duckling was always quacking. That's the end. And now she never knew how Mr. Keesing would take it up. But then, what did she wait for the moment? She gave the verse. Mr. Keesing just bursted and laughed. Now, that's the end of the diary entry, and that's where the great diary from Anne Frank ends. Now you might be asking, why did he laugh? Yes, he might have put into his position this if that father duckling was Mr. Keesing and the small ducklings were the kids, obviously with Anne Frank. So this was something, an opening note for Keesing, and then very clearly Anne Frank ends the diary note by telling, he never ever punished me. He always allowed me to talk in the class. So this is a summary of Diary of Anne Frank. So few important things I'll just quickly go through. She used diary. One important point which I missed. She always says, why I use diary? Why is diary far better than other friends? Because she says diary has more patience than people. Diary has more patience than people. For example, if you start talking to your friend, even your friend needs to talk, right? So they might interrupt you and they might intrude and talk. So paper is one person who's always patient. You can go on and on and on. It's not gonna speak back. Okay, just like a monologue. So that was the reason why Anne Frank chose diary. The name of diary was Kitty. When was it given? For her 13th birthday. Who gave? Father gave. Okay, and now after her death, father published the diary entry. It was gone all over the world and was also being translated into different languages. The major incident what she is trying to portray in this diary entry to you is about the particular incident what happened in the class. And the favorite teacher, actually he is not a favorite teacher, but still Mr. Keesing, and how it literally changed. So this is about Diary of Anne Frank. Now we'll move on to the few important questions. It will help you how to answer a question like value based and short answer questions. Let's move on to the important questions of the chapter Anne Frank. Okay, first question, why does Anne provide a brief sketch of her life? She's not telling in detail about her personal details, but still she gives a brief sketch. You see the word which is being used, brief sketch. Why? She wants to give a brief sketch about her life because she thinks only then the person who is reading this will understand about me. Okay, that is why. So she just wanted to give the introduction about her life, a brief sketch of her life, because only then the person who's reading diary entry will know about her and her family. Okay, that is why she gives a brief sketch about the family. Moving on to the question number 2. What tells you that Anne loved her grandmother? When the parents moved to Holland for some time during their childhood, what happened? Anne Frank and his sister had to go to her grandmother, and grandmother was taking care of them. And she loved her grandmother so well. And how it is evident in the story, which we can very clearly says that she says during her 14th birthday, she lit an extra candle and she says, "This is for my grandmother. She was a part of my life." Okay, from this particular action, very clearly we can understand that she loved her grandmother so much. Question number 3. How did Anne justify her in the essay? The chatterbox. She justified herself in the essay The Chatterbox by telling that she is also a chatterbox, her mother is also a chatterbox, and it is an inherited trait. What do I mean inherited trait? Which is the trait which is got from years and years, from grandparents to parents, then to her. Okay, it's an inherited trait. For example, we can say certain birthmarks are inherited. For example, we have also seen the father is a teacher, the grandmother is a teacher, then the child is teacher. So like that, it's a trait, that teaching skill is a trait which will be carried over. So this particular trait of talking is there, which is inherited. What made Mr. Keesing allow Anne to talk in the class? Yes, in the end we can say Mr. Keesing did not punish Anne at all. Now why? The last essay, the topic was "Quack quack," said Miss Anne Frank. Now in that essay, which very clearly explained the video, why? Because she very clearly says the story about a duckling, 3 ducklings with a father duck and a mother duck. Okay, there what happened? The ducklings was always quacking continuously, so father duck bit the duckling to death. From this, very clearly Keesing was able to put himself into the story and very clearly note the last one, "Quack quack quack," said Miss Anne Frank, is not an essay, it was a poetry, and Sani, her friend, also helped Anne Frank with the poetry. So from this, very clearly we can understand Mr. Keesing was a kind of teacher who belonged to the old kind of school, and he was in that kind of particular way of teaching, and he wanted perfect silence. Okay, and from this, one more thing we can clearly understand about Anne, one particular trait is she was a witty kind of person. Yes, so with